What's up, you guys? Due to popular requests and a bunch of requests, you guys have been asking me to do a Tsunami-like drop or to do a remake of Tsunami, and finally, I was just making a song. This is like one of my newer sessions from this week, and it just had a Tsunami vibe a little bit, so I finally just dragged in Tsunami from MP3, and I just kind of compared them both and just started to kind of make it sound similar. Obviously, it's not an exact remake. I know that's what you guys would have wanted, but I'm just working with what I'm doing during the week. So I'm gonna play them now back to back, so you guys can hear them together and see how similar it is and stuff. Again, I'm not gonna say it sounds as good as Tsunami. I totally wish, but I think it's close enough to satisfy most people. So let's take a listen to Tsunami first, and then I'll just kind of unsolo it so you can hear my stuff, and then back to soloing and you'll hear this. So let's start here. So you can hear that what's similar is just that they're both really wide. Obviously, Tsunami is a mastered song, and it was probably mixed and mastered by some really good engineers and stuff. But you can hear that's really wide, and there's just like there's a lot of reverb and space that just creates this like atmosphere of just what appears to be loud and big. And I think I came close enough with mine. So I'm gonna now start and show you guys what I have to show you guys, because I have a lot to show. So we're gonna try to keep this kind of short. So there's only 3 things going on in here that really, in terms of what's new on my channel. If you guys want to figure out how I do my kicks, there's already a video on that. And so I'm not gonna talk about kicks. I'm just gonna focus really on 3 tracks right here, which make up the whole part right here. So take a listen. So it's just one massive, one silent, and one sample. Those 3 things make up this kind of drop. So for me, it's always the same 3 things for these kind of things. It's always one percussion. So that could be like a snare sample, a tom sample that's just transposed up. So I'll show you guys how to do that in a sec. And then just like a lasery kind of high-pitched sound. So for me, that's my massive one. And then just like a general pluck. So that's silent for me. So this is the pluck. This is the laser. It's not really laser. I mean, it's just a high-pitched kind of like square sound, so it's not really laser. And then just the sample that is just pitched up a bit. So I'll go ahead and start here with this one. In Ableton, or let's just say this. In any DAW, well, actually I'm gonna do it with Ableton. Fuck everyone else. So in Ableton, if you double click on a sample, you can transpose it up and down a bit. So, so that's really easy to do in Ableton. Again, if you're in Logic or FL Studio or Pro Tools, you can just load your samples into a sampler or whatever and then just transpose it up. Or Logic is really good at, manipulating audio like that. So just double click on a sample here in Ableton, bam, just transpose up your snare or whatever sample you want to work with, and then you'll have a nice kind of clicky sound. So I think this is what it sounded like originally. This might be the original sample right here. And you can just see I just did an extreme bunch of EQing here. So the main thing to note is I just boosted like 220 hertz by like 9 dB at a sort of narrow Q. So that just gives the snare kind of like a rezo-y sound. And so now back over here, what I did after I transposed it was I just kind of made my pattern. I kind of just figured out the timing of how I wanted this part to play. And then I consolidated all of the wave together so that it would just be in one nice waveform like this and not look like a bunch of samples like that. So now what I can do is in Ableton Live 9 you can go to convert drums to new MIDI. So that's what I did here, and I got my MIDI information, and then I brought it down and used it with my synthesizer, so I didn't have to refigure out the timing of it. It's just the same timing as what's going on up here. So that made things really easy to do. And also I like to consolidate things, just kind of save some CPU there, so it doesn't have to kind of render and have each transposed note in the RAM. So yeah, that kind of helps. And then I did a bunch of crazy stuff here that kind of just makes things sound better. So in my EQ, I did kind of cut out the low end a little bit, so kind of starting around 74 hertz is gonna just dip things down a bit. Then I boosted 153 hertz by like 6 dB, pretty much just like that. Kind of narrow Q. I cut out the 1K by like 13 dB, and then I just sort of rolled off a little bit high end too, starting around 3K. And if you guys want to copy down this vinyl distortion, go ahead. It doesn't make a big difference. I don't even really need it in there, so I'll let you kind of hear that, what that sounds like if you guys want to copy that. So that's just gonna, I used it just to give it some color, and really just like, I didn't even use vinyl distortion for distortion. I just wanted to color it. And so if you guys want that, copy that down. It's not necessary at all. And then the reverb. So the reverb is kind of what starts to give it that kind of like animals feel with percussion, where it just fills in a lot of space. So what I do usually with my reverbs here in Ableton, I just turn these three off. So chorus, diffusion network, and early reflections. I turn those off, and I pull the diffuse all the way down, so that's like the room sound. So I bring this all the way down. I bring pre-delay all the way down because I want the reverb to engage as quickly as possible. And then I kind of just set my low and high cut to this range, so I'm not gonna, have the high end in the mids in my reverb so much, and not as much low either. So you can see what range I'm at there. It's from 250 hertz pretty much to like 5K. That's pretty much what's in here. And then let's see, and that's just at 25% dry wet. So very simple parameters, settings right here, and it gives me like a nice little sound. And then I just compressed it a bit, so not too much. I didn't want too much gain reduction. I would say I'm probably peaking at like 6 dB of gain reduction, or negative 6 dB. Crap. So if you guys want to copy that down, go ahead, but it's not going to really matter because you're probably going to use a different sample and have different settings. So just try to get at least 3 dB of gain reduction just to kind of compress things down so it's just a little bit tighter. And now I'm going to show you guys what I do with utility. So utility is a stock Ableton Live 9 plugin. Again, every plugin I'm showing, if you're not in Ableton, you can use your DAW's plugins. So like every DAW has like a EQ, a reverb, a compressor, and probably something like utility, which is pretty much like a stereo imager. So I just brought the width up to like 150%, and then I just added in the gain to make up for the loss of volume when you pan things out and make them wider. So I probably added in like 10 dB of gain just to overdo the volume so I can make it also louder at the same time. And with this, just make everything overall louder on this track. And then I do have this in a group, and it's pretty much a similar EQ. Just kind of, this is just for what I have going on here. So you can ignore this EQ. It's pretty much doing the same thing. So I don't need to do that. And just another compressor with just a slightly lower ratio and settings. It's not really supposed to be reducing a lot. I'm probably getting like maybe 3 to 5 dB gain reduction here. And then just another reverb here that you don't need to group this if you're in Ableton, unless you're gonna have all your snares in one spot. So for me, this is just where I'm putting all my snares in this group. You can also just make a send and then use a parallel reverb in that way, and that'll probably give you better results. So what's on this reverb here on the group is let me see. So again, I'm just low cutting, high cutting, same kind of range. It's actually a little bit wider of a range. It's from 122 hertz to 6K, around there. All these are off again. There's a little bit diffuse at negative 14 dB. Reflect is all the way up. The dry wet is at 26%. Decay time is at 2.30 seconds. And size is at 66. So that's what I have going on here. And that's pretty much it for this top sound. So this is what that sounds like and what you should maybe have. So again, I just turned a snare sample like this into this. So that was like the whole point of that. And this again is what I start with when I do these kind of drops. So that way, once I have all this figured out and I have like the nice bass for that, then I have something like this. And then, like I said earlier, I obtained the MIDI information from that so that now I could add on synthesizers and, add in, my own stuff. So that's when I added in the massive and the silent here. So on this group, this is where I grouped massive and silent together, and there's no, as you can see, there's nothing going on the group there, so no need to worry about that. And it's a very simple patch, so I'll show it really quick. I'm not going to explain it too much. I do think I've given this patch to you guys on my Facebook. If you can find it, and all the sample and all the presets I've given out maybe a few hundred now, so that'd be really hard to find. But this is a really simple sound. It's just 3 oscillators. They're all smooth square. All the parameters are up all the way. They're just slightly detuned. There's just a little bit of modulation right here. That's on, which is just phase on oscillator 3, up all the way. Slight detuning here. We're not using any noise feedback, inserts, filters, none of that stuff. We're just using a little bit of reverb here, so you can see my reverb is kind of like around this range of dry wet. Size is around here, density, color, etc. EQ is just slight notches. You can copy that down if you want. The main thing that matters here is pretty much voicing, which is 16:6, and triggers always. This is polyphon, pan position all the way on full invert, and pitch cutoff like that. So that's pretty much what makes this sound. And of course you're going to want to widen the amp envelope. So quick attacks, long release. So release all the way down, attack all the way down, levels all the way up, decay all the way up, delay right here all the way down. Very simple. And let's see, that's it. So it's a super easy patch to make, and you just want to play this one really high. So even though I got the MIDI information from my sample up here, that just gave me the timing of the pattern. So then I just selected everything, and then I just pressed shift up, and then that just brought these MIDI notes a few octaves higher. So I'm at like F3, so it's not even an extremely high octave, and it gave me this sort of sound. And obviously I threw on a wow filter because, as you guys may know, I love the wow filter. I find so many uses for it. So this right here is just gonna color the reverb and extend it out a little, make it more obvious, and just, you know, it's a filter effect, so I like using this plugin a lot. So it's just band reject, cutoff is right around here at this second line. Overdrive is kind of in between 0 and 30. Reso's slightly beneath 70. Not using any of the modulators, as you can see if you double click here. There's no modulation going on. Mix and master up all the way, so that's all that's going on. And val mode is off, so very simple. And then you guys probably noticed this, so this is probably what makes things much better. So in Ableton you can group most things together, and when you group things like this, like massive, then you can open up all these and add macros and mappings and such. So what I did is I clicked on massive here, I pressed Command D, and then I made an exact copy of this patch down here, and then what I did was I panned them out so that they're just wider. So one's 25 to the right and the other's 25 to the left. And sometimes usually I'll go into the second patch here and I'll change things up slightly. So I'll detune the oscillators more, I'll maybe add in more phase, maybe a bit of vibrato. I mean, maybe even add in like a Bronner tube or something like that. Just kind of, not to really change it to sound way different, just to change it slightly. So when they're both being played together and the left side and the right side sound slightly different but still sound like the same patch, it just sounds much wider. So I mean, I did that pretty much again here in Silent. So now let's just move on to Silent, because now we're done with the massive one. So as you can see here in Silent, I did pretty much the same thing, except these are panned 50 to the right and 50 to the left, so they're just much wider. And yeah, I probably just made a few changes to this one, just more detuning or less detuning, or maybe took off an effect or two. I mean, it could be anything. It's just, you're just making slight changes to make them slightly different. And so I think this is a really cool, one of the first presets I ever bought for Silent, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I still use it today. I don't know if it's okay for me to show it to you guys, but just take a quick look anyway, because again, I'm not doing this tutorial on individual sounds, but like an overall drop. So it's just a bunch of sine wave, saw waves. They're just detuned slightly, phased slightly. You can see what the amp envelope looks like, what the filtering looks like, what the filter control's doing, what the modulation, and what the mod envelope is doing to the cutoff A and B. I mean, all that really matters is just to kind of see how much distortion is going on. So that's just a little bit of feedback here. EQ doesn't really matter. It's just it's open. You can pause it there. The reverb is what I tweaked in all of this. So the reverb, I just added to 41%. Pre-delays at like 99 or 100 milliseconds would be fine. I dampened it by like 7 dB or so, or 7. And the size I brought up to 8.79. Width is up all the way. And that's pretty much it. So, and part B is not that different. More detuned and inverted waves and such. So I'll let you guys pause it if you guys want to. Everything's all on the screen here, and you don't need to get things exactly right. Nothing here is like too touchy and has to be in a very specific spot. So now I'm going to continue on. So now that I've gone over these two patches, shown you what I've done here, and shown you what I've done with the sample, that's pretty much it. It's just, should I just dropped a bottle? So that's really it. It's just a combination of the right elements together with just processing of reverbs and such, and it just gives it an overall wide appearance. So these kind of things are really simple, but you know, people tend to overthink it and maybe just over listen, and just, I don't know. Tsunami's not one of the most complicated drops ever. It's just really good engineering, which hopefully I kind of showed a little bit of today. So again, I'll just show you guys what these three things sound like. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, on this group right here, I am using a send to another reverb. So that's Option Command T if you want to add in another send. in Ableton, and this is just a reverb gate trick. I do have a video on this too, but I'll let you guys see the parameters here for this reverb so that I don't have to explain it and take up more time. But I'll explain what's going on with the gate. So the gate here is being sidechained back to the group here. So the group that I'm sending to the send is now also being sidechained. Is also the input for the sidechain. So now every time something's played over here on this group, the signal will open up the gate and this reverb will pass through. And when something's not playing up here, then obviously the reverb won't be triggered, but the tail of it still will not pass through because this isn't opened with that. So hopefully that made some sense. I'm not too good at explaining like gate stuff like that off the top of my head. I don't ever really think about what I'm going to say when I'm doing tutorials, which is weird. And that's pretty much just a little bit more of reverb. And then one thing I do want to show, and then video's over, is just I widened my master up a bit. This is something I would do normally in mixing and never in like my my writing sessions. So the only reason why it's here is because I was comparing this to the to Tsunami. So when you guys get to the mastering part, you're probably gonna have a lot of tracks and a lot of things going on, and what happens is inside of like a DAW like Ableton or Logic or Pro Tools is that there's so much digital information going around, so much processing, that the whole sum of it, the whole like summing process that ends up on the master track becomes a little bit less wider. So to make it sound a bit more natural and a bit more like analog stuff, you're just gonna add in some more width to the whole thing. So this is just a stereo imager made by Waves. Most DAWs have something like this. Again, in Ableton it would be utility, but I prefer using this plugin over utility for this because it's a little bit better. And all you gotta do is just add a little bit more width, and that's it. So again, not hard to do. It's super easy, and hopefully I've shown you guys something cool or whatever. So like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever. Peace, guys.